Previously on 5 Cent Wax.
Hey everybody, I'm Tyler, and this is my new channel, 5 Cent Wax. Thanks for being with me today. Hope you got a great weekend planned ahead. I'm a collector returning to the hobby after about a 30-year break, and I was in shock when, after a couple of hours of visiting with my folks, my dad walked me down to their basement and to a storage room they have there, and opened the door, and there was my brother's collection. When I first got his collection, started going through it, took the last few months to organize it, get it together, figure out what he had. And kind of to honor him and his memory, we've kind of decided to turn the bonus room into, a display honoring him and some of the things that he had in his collection, which you can see some of it over my shoulder here that's on display. That's kind of the beginnings of it. But along the way, I got the bug again. So I'm back into the business of collecting. I'm passionate about it. My focus has turned to vintage. Asking him where he used to buy his packs from. I was curious about when he was a kid, where he would go, to buy the packs. And he said, well, there was a hardware store down the street in the town I grew up in that he still lives in. And he said, I could ride my bike or walk down to the hardware store, and for 1 cent, I could get a small pack of cards and a smaller sticks of gum, or I could get, for 5 cents, I could get a bigger pack with more cards and more gum. And he said, nothing beat 5 Cent Wax. So I'm going to take you back in time. And in the course of, going up and getting my brother's collection loaded up and brought back to my house, I kind of came face to face with having to, go into his room for the first time. Now, I mentioned before that a lot of my brother's collection was stored in my parents' basement in a storage room, and it was. And after we got through loading all that up, I walked upstairs and I walked into my brother's room for the first time since he had passed. And there was his computer desk. There was his empty wheelchair in front of it where he used to sit. And it was just eerie and emotional, and something that was kind of hard to do, that I hadn't faced in over a year since he passed. But while I was standing in there, I looked over on a bookshelf and I saw several stacks of envelopes sitting there. And so I kind of started looking through them, and there was autographed cards in each one of them. And so these three, we've got football, basketball, and baseball all represented. So pretty cool. Well, I always love being able to honor my brother and his memory through showing you parts of his collection. And I really look forward to opening those through the mail envelopes up, seeing what's in there. It's just always such a surprise and so thrilling for me to lay hands on those cards. This Carl Yastrzemski bat with beautiful blue Sharpie signature. Hey everybody, I'm Tyler. Welcome back to 5 Cent Wax. As you can already tell, today's episode is probably a little bit different than my normal thing, but I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary of making my first video and joining the YouTube card community, and felt like the time was right to do a recap episode, kind of taking you back through how I got to where I am now, from where I started. Because if you've seen my channel before and you've watched some of my stuff, you know that I'm not just telling my own story, but I'm telling my brother Sky's story as well. And I'm trying to weave the two stories together in a way that's coherent and that makes sense. And I don't know if I do a good job of that, but I sure strive to, and I hope I do him a good service by the way I'm telling the stories and showing his memorabilia and his collection. But I thought for newer viewers, if this is your first time seeing me or one of my episodes, I would encourage you to go back to my first episode titled Return to the Hobby and watch it first. And then, of course, please watch all the other content as well. But if you're short on time, that'll catch you up on, kind of how I returned to the hobby after a 30-year hiatus, and kind of how I came to have my brother's collection, and give you a little bit more background about some of the things you'll hear me talk about in other episodes that I've put out there, and in future episodes related to my brother. But going to be honest, I don't know exactly where this one's going to go today, because secondarily to being a recap, I meant this show to be basically your introduction to my brother. And it's an idea that I've kicked around for a while now. Since I started early on, I didn't know how to go about doing this introduction of where I'm able to show you pictures and tell you a little bit more about my big brother's background. And I also didn't know if I could get through it because it's kind of an emotional thing whenever I talk about him, and I'm finding more and more that grief and grieving is not linear. It seems like there's ups and downs and peaks and valleys that you kind of go through, and so I don't know if I'm going to do this right, but I'm going to give it my best shot in today's episode. So I'm going to give you a little bit more information and a little bit more of my brother's story, and then at the end I'm actually going to play a kind of a video montage of my brother that shows his life in pictures a little bit more. And part of this was actually played at his funeral, and I think it's a good way to honor him and kind of bring you with me on this journey a little bit more as you get a glimpse of my brother and what he was about and what his life looked like. Before we get into that, though, I do want to give thanks to everybody out there in the community that's reached out since I jumped into the hobby, and most specifically into the YouTube card community and creating content. You guys are rock stars, man. Just such nice people. I've had the opportunity to meet several of you on either video chats or in person now, and couldn't be happier for that, because I probably wouldn't have got the opportunity to do that without this hobby and without the YouTube community that exists out there. And I'm inspired, a little bit by a group of guys that I've had the opportunity to talk to a couple of times now. Chris from Missouri, who I know several of you know, I think he's probably the mayor of the hobby, put out a video, I think last week, about his daughter Lydia, and kind of the challenges and the barriers that she had to overcome as a newborn. She's a fighter, and he gave us kind of a glimpse at what her life looked like early on and everything she's been through. And so that inspired me to go ahead and do this video, kind of where I'm introducing you to Big Bro. And he also encouraged me. We were actually on a video chat over the weekend with some others. It was me and Chris and Mike from Jayhawker Vintage, Joe the Redneck Collector, Jeff from A Fine Card Collector, and Ross from Ross Loves Cards. And I was inspired to tell the story because people seem interested, and I got a lot of good comments, and those guys encouraged me to do this. So here's my best shot. Like I said, just hope I do Big Brother a service. But my brother's name was Sky Lloyd, and he was born on January the 19th of 1976. And it was pretty apparent to my parents and to the doctors that there was something, that he had that was affecting his body. And come to find out, he was born with very severe scoliosis and other defects that impacted his spine and his spinal cord. And so my brother would go on to live the entirety of his life in a wheelchair with, no mobility in his lower body, very limited mobility and use of his upper body. He could use his arms some to prop himself up in the wheelchair, and he could type, as you've heard me allude to before. He could type faster with these two fingers than I can with both hands. And he also taught himself to write by kind of cradling a pencil or a pen between his fingers and bracing the utensil against his thumb to write. But he faced an uphill battle from the start, and my parents, to their credit, made the decision early on that they were going to give my brother, the most normal life that they could. And I didn't really know any better growing up, but we never purposely tried to treat my brother any differently than we would anybody else or in a special way, even though obviously there was a lot of special care that he needed and a lot that we went through as his caretakers. We just wanted him to have a normal life and feel like he was, just another kid or just one of the guys. And to their credit, I think they did a very good job of that. My brother played t-ball growing up as a kid. My dad would help him hit the ball off the tee, and then my dad was his runner. He would push him in his chair around the baselines. And I think there's actually some newspaper clippings that I'll show you in the video deck we're going to see at the end that shows him playing baseball. That was in the local newspaper when he was a kid. But he, grew up, went through a few years of homeschooling, and then my parents made the decision to enroll him in the public schools, and went through middle school and high school that way with aides and, of course, great friends that helped him get to class and helped him get up and down stairs with a stair climber on his chair and got him to school and back home. And, during those years, I really kind of got a front row seat to how to handle adversity, how to keep a good attitude, how to just keep going on. And I didn't know I was getting that lesson from him until, really now. I guess looking back now that he's gone, I'm just now beginning to learn how much he taught me and how much of my personality he actually formed, and how much he taught me along the way about being a good man and about, just making the best of what you have. I think that about 90% of success in life is just about showing up and having the right attitude and giving effort. And he epitomized that mindset. He showed up. He always had a good attitude and he gave effort. So he was a brainiac. He was just a really smart guy, creative, super creative. Had a mind for writing, wrote poetry and a lot of creative writing, short stories. I found some of his lyrics that he wrote later on to songs and such that he would actually sit around and write. And he was just always that way. So he progressed through middle school and high school. Was actually the salutatorian of his high school class, and then decided he didn't want to end his education there. He actually went on and pursued his associate's degree at a local community college. And my grandfather actually took him to class every day, and picked him up, brought him back home, and he actually pursued an associate's in computer science and information technology. And then he used what he learned there later on in life to start making web pages for people, doing a lot of Java and Visual Basic and things of that nature to do some coding for people that wanted an online platform. And so I think it's just a testament to him that he could have chose to just this is the status quo. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to get through life. But instead, he still strove to do more and to better himself and to learn and to grow. And that's evident in so many other ways in his life. He was very active in the church that I grew up in. He was actually a youth leader with the Awanas program for several years and impacted the lives of those young kids that he worked with. And he was just a magnet for everyone around that town. He just drew people to him. I would come home from school and never really knew who I would find at the kitchen table. Somebody that had brought him lunch or brought him dinner, or just wanted to come by and hang out. He was just always there and always available, and people gravitated towards that. He was also a great listener, which is probably why so many people gravitated to him, because, he just was one of those people that you could talk to and feel like you weren't being judged and you weren't trying to have somebody fix your problem. He was just going to listen and be an empathetic ear to listen to you and be there for you and pray for you if you needed it, and, just be a friend when you needed it. So, great guy. We did lose my brother on November the 13th of 2023. So we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of his passing. And I've alluded to this before, but I kind of know now that getting back to the hobby and inheriting his collection has really been driven by trying to fill that void of him not being here. But I'm really just starting to understand that the decision to get back on YouTube, or to get on YouTube rather, and to start creating content is really, I think, two things. It's to connect with him and to keep his story alive, because I feel like his story deserves to be told. And I want, for posterity's sake, I want these videos out there to where my kids can not only watch their dad one day, but they can hear stories about their uncle, or they can, kind of see things from his collection that hopefully one day they'll inherit as I pass it down to them, along with the pieces that I've added to it. But I find myself more and more really feeling like it's my responsibility to tell his story and to sing his praises, and to get the message out there that, if you're going through hard times or you're facing challenges, which we all do to varying degrees, some more than others, that there is hope, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that, you're valuable as a person, and that you're loved by God, and you can be a light in this world. We can be kind to each other, and we can exhibit the traits that he exhibited every day, if we're of a mind to. So with that, hope you don't mind my rambling. Hope I've told you a little bit more about my brother. I did leave out the fact that growing up in East Tennessee, he somehow became a Georgia Bulldog fan. Not sure how that happened. My dad claims he was adopted. But I think early on, he kind of started developing a like for Herschel Walker, and he saw them running rampant on my Vols and thought it was funny to tease my dad and my uncle about, the Bulldogs being better than the Vols, and that turned into an actual lifelong fandom. As you'll see, he was a huge Georgia fan, huge baseball fan, just loved sports in general. But Chris from Missouri was giving me a hard time when he found out that my brother was a Georgia fan. He said, "Oh my goodness, I don't know about that." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, I lived with it for 47 years." So anyway, with that, bro, I miss you. I wish you were right here for me to, to hug your neck and sit with you. And I know you're better off now, and you're not facing the challenges that you faced on this earth, brother. I love you.